The side hustle might be a phrase you've heard, but haven't really thought about how it relates to you and your startup idea. We often think starting a business is a full-time decision. It's all or nothing. It's a huge leap into the unknown. But with a side hustle, you can minimize the risk. You can try before you buy into committing full-time. At the end of 2018, research showed that as many as 1 in 4 people in the UK were running at least one business project alongside their main income, contributing an estimated £72 billion to the UK economy. And at the time of the research, it was estimated that by 2030, the number of people with side hustles could increase to 50% of the UK population. Now, I don't know what this year will have done in terms of changing that percentage and changing that outlook, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're on track to reach that even faster than 2030. Earning through a side hustle helps you earn extra income while keeping paid employment and helps maintain cash flow as your new business establishes itself. With digital communities and marketplaces helping to fast track the route to market and allowing entrepreneurs to tap into a wider breadth of customers than ever before, more and more people are choosing to start side hustles and are seeing them grow. And Vicky Broadbent is one such entrepreneur. Vicky has grown her blog, The Honest Mum, from a hobby and passion to her full-time commercial income. She's also the author of Mum Boss, which examines the opportunities you can unearth by unlocking spare time, often while at home with a family. So Vicky, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lim, for having me. It's really lovely. Thank you.
No, thank you. So can you please tell us about the Honest Mum blog? We can't start by not hearing, about what you do. So how it began and how it later grew, and also a little bit about your online community.
Yeah, sure. I was a first-time mum in 2010. I was on maternity leave from being, I was a director. I was a TV director and a filmmaker. And it's very hard to sort of thrive in that industry. I think when I was researching my book, I think at the time there was only about 4% of female directors, because the workforce, the media industry, particularly if you're directing, is not really set up for mothers. There's a lot of inequalities there, which is why sort of men thrive in that role. So I had my baby and I didn't know, I very naively thought I could just get back on set and take my baby with me. I'm so naive. I had a really difficult birth, had a traumatic birth. So I was kind of reeling from that physically and mentally. And I set up honestmum.com in 2010. I did not know at that point it was even possible to make a living from a blog. There was no one in the UK that I knew of that was doing that. There were some women in America, but like I say, the reason I started it was a good friend of mine, Aman Kai Tapia, who is a fellow filmmaker who'd encouraged me. She said, "Come on, Vicky, write about all these experiences you're telling me about first-time motherhood." So I thought, actually I was broken. My confidence was broken. I didn't know when I'd get back to directing. And I felt that I needed to kind of rediscover my voice. And I don't even know if I was aware of that. I just knew that I needed creativity because my whole life I'd been creative, whether I'd painted or been a filmmaker. So I just started blogging. And I still to this day remember the very first people that had commented on the blog, that had commented on my social, my mum, my good friends. And I started, I didn't write about the trauma I was experiencing because there was nowhere I was ready to do that. But I sort of used it as a means of escapism. And I wrote about kind of funny anecdotal things that happened to me and my family. And I started to rebuild myself back. So much so, I was nominated for an award as like Fresh New Voice not long after. And that was the catalyst to get me back on set to apply for jobs. And another good friend of mine, Nikki Topping, a casting director, had recommended me to direct something, and I got the job. And I remember feeling, wow, I can start doing this. And subsequently I moved back closer to my family. I had therapy, but the blog was such a big part of getting myself mentally strong again. And to my surprise, the digital world in 2010 started to explode. I mean, we see it now. We're going through a revolution. Digitization's been accelerated because of COVID. Digital, though, at the time, particularly, I remember thinking, wow, if I get something commissioned, I'm relying on gatekeepers in the TV and film world. But through my blog, I just write and hit publish immediately. And the way that SEO works is that you organically find, your audience finds you. So people that are interested in what you're writing about, they find you. And and it just grew from there. And very, very quickly, 6 weeks in, I was approached to do an advertorial. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know how this works. Like, this is a blog about my life. But they were like, well, we'll tell you everything about this course. It was for a college, and testimonials and things. And if you're happy, we'll pay you to write about it. And then I remember sort of 6 months later doing a really big job for a huge brand. And before I knew it, I was like, wow, I can earn the same as I can directing, but doing a flexible job that doesn't make me compromise on motherhood, where I can see my son, where I don't need to be away for weeks on end on set, where, I felt like I'd discovered this sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I was like, this is unreal, because it would never really been heard of for mums, particularly, who were given a short straw in the workplace. And we've still got, 100 years until the gender pay gap's resolved, and there's still vast inequalities. But suddenly I felt like I had some control over my career, that I could earn remotely, flexibly, and have a financially secure career. And then it's just grown and grown and grown. And we hit 10 years the other day, and I have a freelance team that work for me, and they're mostly parents. And it's just wonderful to do something enriching that I feel I have creative control over. I work with brands that align with my values, and my children have benefited so much from having me so present in their lives, and also the sorts of experiences that they've had because of my blog. So I felt very passionate about all of this. And right from the word go, I've constantly and consistently shared my journey, and also shared the practical ways, all the stuff that I learned, because I was a director and I'd also taught over the years. I really enjoy sharing information and upskilling fellow parents. I felt like this has been a real gift, and I was able to obviously leverage the skills I had and my MA and my university years and whatever to build something. But I wanted other parents, whatever their background, to be able to learn from my experience and build their own businesses online.
Okay, I'll come back to you to talk more about the digital aspect of what you were doing. But would you say then it took maybe 6 months doing this until you thought, actually, I can maybe make a living from this? Did you believe that you could make a living from it that quickly?
I mean, I was shocked that 6 weeks in, I was being offered, money for a blog post that took me 20 minutes to write. 6 months was sort of the first big job. I would say by the time I'd had Alexander sort of 2 years later, I had made the leap into a pretty much full-time career. And I say full-time, but still very flexible. And, but now what's interesting is you can grow very quickly. And actually I was developing things and I was working on other projects at the same time. Had I wanted to, I could have probably leapt quicker. But actually it was serving me as a part-time job very well in between these other projects and being a mum. And I was earning a good living. Now what's happened is because someone referred to me as pioneering the other day, and I thought, well, I'm just like a grandma of blogging, really, in the sense that I've made the mistakes for others, so you can learn from me. And now I would say within 9 months you can build something or quicker online, and you can grow a community because we're all online. We're consuming online, we're communicating online, no more so now than ever, because we can't physically see one another as much because of COVID. So, and lockdowns and that's the whole world. So more people than ever are online right now. So this is the time to think about your business, your ideas, your passions. This is the time, if you've got an e-shop, that you should be blogging on your e-shop, because in order to get visibility, you need to have current and constant new material that people that can come up in searches. This is a very important technical aspect of blogging. Yes, you've got your storytelling and you need to put personality into it, and you need to also be on social, but you also need to think, how can I rank in search engines? If I've got a small business and I make handmade Christmas cards, or I make jewelry, or I'm selling candles, or whatever it may be, or I've got an e-commerce fashion store, or you've got to think, I need that to come up in searches. And in order to do that, I need to write quality, engaging pieces on a blog that will also sit on my website, because a website's static. So you're not going to have you're not going to constantly keep sort of being indexed online on Google, but a blog will get you to do that. And it's also, so everybody needs to be a storyteller. The way that I work essentially is that I'm an online magazine. So my readers get me for free. They get my life for free, my social, they know about my personality. They know about my loves, my likes. They know when bad things have happened, good things have happened. I mean, they know what I've had for breakfast. And in a sense, I used to be someone whose vision was in drama and storytelling in that way, but I was much more behind the camera. Now I've become a character within my own narrative, and it's real, and people know all of these things. And the way that I work.
Sorry, can I just ask you just to pick up on that a little bit? So, some people watching this might be thinking, actually, I do have a side hustle. I've never realised I've got a side hustle, but that's exactly what I'm doing. But at what point do you make that decision to start thinking about SEO, to start thinking about telling your story? At what point do you make
storytelling happen?
Turn it from side hustle into full time, if you like?
Storytelling happened automatically because I was a storyteller, and that blogging is storytelling. You're sharing your story, other people's stories, whatever that may be, interviews. You are sharing creativity, your art out there online. SEO and social. I was on Facebook, and I just thought this is a great way to promote this is pre-Instagram days, a great way to promote. Twitter is still a brilliant place. And because I started in 2010, obviously, I've got 10 years of Google ranking me, and I was able to embrace Pinterest when it came along, and all these things. You can learn these. I mean, this is a little plug. This is my book, Mum Boss, and it's got everything in there, from how to get your confidence back to how to set up a business, all the logistics of that, the practicalities, SEO. I've got amazing experts in there. So, there's material out there to learn. And very quickly, I set up the Working Mothers Academy, which is all video-based courses, so that you can learn how to ace Instagram. You can learn how to be a blogger. So I think, there are resources out there, and that's great, because there's many of us that have sort of found this accidental career, essentially, because that's what it is. It wasn't like a premeditated, I'm going to become a blogger. No one was blogging financially. I could have probably made it a full-time hustle earlier, but because I was developing something in the film industry, I directed, and I'd had another baby. So, but by the time he was born, it was pretty much a full-time job. And obviously there's a lot of you feel quite empowered being your own boss. And particularly when you feel as a parent that you're maybe not given the flexibility that you need, that you feel that you're compromising as a parent. So, but now is a really critical time. And I think lots of people have found this, because a bit like a maternity leave, but obviously under dire circumstances, in this case with COVID, we've had a chance to pause, and we've had a chance to say, we're not happy with the roller coaster that we're on. We are given more time. And for some of us, obviously many people are suffering immensely, and I'm not minimizing that in any way. But for some people, they found for the first time ever, I was speaking to a daddy blogger the other day who said, he gets to do everything with his kids now that he just couldn't do when he was working all hours in the office, because he's working from home. So he doesn't miss bath time, he doesn't miss bedtime, they're all eating together. And he said, I can't tell you, it's transformed my mental health. And there's a lot of us that have had almost a bit of a wake-up call. to some extent. And I think when something so tragic, like this, pandemic, happens, we are forced to reevaluate what we want from life, because we are reminded how short and precious life is. We're reminded that we want more for ourselves. We don't want to compromise on things that make us happy, like being there for our kids or whatever that may be. And I think people are reimagining the way that they work now. And
There's a sense of control, isn't there? Sorry, Vicky. I think there's a sense of taking control over what's happening to you. There's a sense of, some people are going to be in really difficult circumstances, with jobs and employment and everything else. And I think there's that sense of the side hustle enables you to have control over something and to decide what happens then. You become the owner of your own destiny to a certain extent, which sounds kind of, very ethereal, but you can make those decisions and you have that control. And was that something that was important to you as as your family grew and as I guess as the sector evolved? Was that control important to you?
It's really important because, like I say, I felt a little bit control less when I was, I don't even know if that's a word, but lacking control when I was a screenwriter and a director. So much of my career hinged on other people saying, yes, you're commissioned, yes, you're directing this, yes, we're making this. I've still got projects in development, and I hope they get made, but they might never get made. But what I did was I thought, okay, I had something in development with BBC Comedy and I thought, God, and it's since moved, but I thought, if I can't, let me be a mini BBC. and I say that quite humbly because I'm definitely, nowhere like the BBC in sense of, scalability and all those things and creative content. But I sort of thought, how can I, and it wasn't intentional, as I say at the beginning, there was no one was earning from, I was one of the first bloggers. And there was a group of us as mummy bloggers that sort of were there at the advent of blogging. I was having to explain to people what a blog was. It's really 10 years ago. It was a different landscape, but it was the start of something. And what I've learned over these 10 years is that everything hinges on great storytelling, great impactful writing relies on rewriting and harnessing that voice of yours and really committing to your craft, to learning, to evolving, making mistakes, learning from those. And also I've learned that a lot of the skills that I had when I was producing as well as directing, and I directed some ads as well, is that, you're working with PR firms, you have to know how to pitch, you have to know how to negotiate, you have to start feeling confident about money and knowing your worth and understanding your taxes and VAT and accounts. But these things come gradually, but the more empowered you are, as the saying goes, knowledge is power, the stronger your business will become and the greater sort of longevity you'll have. And I think these are really important skills. And now I'm in a position where I'm able to help people upskill through my book Mum Boss, through my academy, online learning, which is helping women very easily and quickly kind of watch videos and learn. And I think that's very important to me because I want to give something back. And I've always had that approach where I was one of the first bloggers to share how I made money, how my business, the first time, how it was thriving, and kind of that's been important to me because women, like I say, particularly mums, are given the short straw. So yes, it does give you the power. You sort of are able to take that power back. And what's wonderful, and I was saying about, I've got this online magazine, so I work with advertisers. So it's slightly different from if I had my own e-shop and I'm relying on customers. My audience don't pay for me and access to my life, but my advertisers pay to get in front of that audience. And I think that people worry that they need huge numbers, okay? And obviously it's lovely to be like, oh, reach millions of people. But actually targeted audiences are really, really critical. And I know from, even small niche audiences, they're very loyal. So don't underestimate that and don't compare yourself to someone who's been around for 20 years or 10 years or 5 years. We've all started from one reader, my mum, and it's still my mum's reading. So obviously I've had the gift of time, quite frankly. And yes, I've committed and all those things. But if you're starting a blog tomorrow and social media, it's not right. It's not sensible to compare to me. It makes no sense. It's like me comparing myself to a scientist of 10 years experience, and I'm going to start tomorrow doing a degree in science or whatever it may be. Like, we've got to be practical. And I think social media can be quite dangerous in that respect. You look at people kind of getting amazing holidays and working with brilliant brands and all those things. And that's lovely, but that does not come overnight. You know, I think it's Jeff Bezos that says you're an overnight success after 10 years. And that really is the case. So for me, I want to demystify the process a lot more. And whilst you might see me doing these amazing things, please know the kind of graph that went behind it. And you yourself can achieve that too. You do need to learn. You do need to commit to stuff. You know, one blog a week is probably not going to cut it. You need to build. And I think what's great is with something digital, and I say this a lot, in traditional media, I found if I was to put 100% in, I would only get 50% back, you know, at best, because of the nature of it, the competitiveness, the, you know, lack of democracy in that space, et cetera, et cetera. Because you're working on a democratic platform, essentially. Yes, Facebook, Instagram, they do want your money. They want you to advertise. But if you look at kind of a blog, a website, that's a democratic platform pretty much. So you can, even if you put in 50%, you will get 100% out. I mean, I've proved it. So I think take reassurance in that. And actually, it's sad to see the high streets dying. It's sad to see a lot of valuable traditional presses dying. But we have to look at this moment now and say that this is time now to really embrace online and all that it offers, and that you could be sat, you know, on your kitchen table like I was and build something, and you can actually speak to communities all over the world. You know, something wonderful happened with my blog, a gorgeous story where I had a lady in Australia contact me, and she said, Vicky, I read your dad's recipe on your blog, and it was for a very specific Greek Cypriot dessert. And she's, you know, so there's probably not a lot of them online because it was really quite specific. And she said, I know this is going to sound crazy. I don't recognize your surname, but your face is so familiar and you look so like my godmother. And it turned out that my grandma was this lady's godmother. And I was able to sort of reunite my family in Australia and my family in Leeds and Manchester. And they all met up last year. A lot of them, I mean, my grandma's not around, and you know, it shows you like you can connect people in Australia from the UK through a recipe because that's online. So I suppose
power, sorry, Vicky, that power of connecting, because that's what our audience is doing today. You know, they're on the chat, they're connecting, and even though we're not together in a physical space, we are together in this amazingly powerful, as you've said, online community. And what difference does that make for you in terms of, you know, how you collaborate and who you collaborate with? Like, just how much does that open up that sphere of opportunity for you to, you know, test new ideas and to take the blog in a new direction?
I mean, it's so lovely. I've always worked collaboratively. Obviously, as a director, you're only as strong as the weakest person in your team, and you are equal to your cinematographer and your production designer. Yeah, you have to steer the ship. Someone needs to have this vision, but you are working with teams. I would collaborate often with fellow filmmakers. So collaboration was something I always did. And I think one thing that I love on my blog is that I run, for many years now, I've run a series called Wonderful Women Interviews. And I've interviewed so many incredible women, from like charity SEOs, campaigners, Spice Girls, you name it, that section. And I'm so proud of that. And actually, whenever people say to me, sort of more from a practical perspective, oh, I'm not sure I can write 2 or 3 blogs a week, or I'm not sure I've got enough content, I always say to them, have you thought about interviews? Because I always used to love reading, you know, interviews in magazines. And I can't remember which magazine it was, but there was always a back interview that I'd always read with various people. And I thought I'd love to share my space with other creative women. And this is what I've done. And I often encourage other women, whether they're doctors or barristers, whatever their blog's about, I said, share your space with people you admire, men, women, children. Get those interviews in there because it's a great way to create content and add value to your site. And but more than that, it's a great way to share. I think that we've all grown up to some extent with this concept, which maybe starts at school, that is quite single-minded in the way that you operate, in the way that you learn, in the way that you achieve. Some schools have got it right now, and it's, more of an emphasis on collaboration. But I think that's something that needs to sort of be fortified, really, because two minds are better than one. And if you can get kind of this hive mind together and you can work with other people and share your space and stop being so scared to share what you have. I'm never scared. I've always just been so open. And I think that's my personality, but it's also because I was a teacher. And I think that when you feel content in who you are, you're not operating in a fearsome way of, oh, this person's better than me. I want people better than me on my blog, and there's a lot of those people out there. So, I think it's about shifting and relearning those negative voices that we've heard, and really getting confident in yourself and just valuing yourself. And I turned 40 the other day, hence all these flowers and backgrounds. And I thought to myself, gosh, I really know who I am, and I feel, and that strengthens me. And I said to my husband, I wish I felt this way at 20. I met my husband young and at uni, but it's a learning thing. And I actually think motherhood matures us in many ways. It can also make us feel more insecure than ever for many reasons. But I think that blogging and storytelling online can really help build your identity back and that confidence back, because it's a living thing. You storytell and then people comment and reply and encourage and share, and then they write, and it's quite magical, actually. And once you're confident enough to start sharing your kind of magic and voice with the world, you are connected with other people that are like you or have shared interests. So, for instance, if you love cats and you want to, you're creating mugs with cats on and you're writing about cats and you're sharing your cat, naturally, people searching online who love cats will stumble across you eventually. So I think it's the only surefire way to know that you will find an audience. If you commit to sharing online, you will find an audience.
I think there's also, there's two things with that, Vicky. There's the validation that reaching that audience gives you. And I often talk to startups about how important it is to validate their ideas really, really early. And I think reaching that audience enables you to do that. I think there's also something really interesting about that aspect of confidence, because it can feel really lonely setting up a business. Being an entrepreneur sounds grand, but it can be a very lonely, quite scary experience at times. And I think building those connections and using digital to build your community maybe help shift your mindset a little bit. Did it help you shift your mindset from thinking I'm going to write a blog and that will help me deal with some other things?
Yeah, it gave
me. I can start to think as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think it gave me friendship. Some of my closest friends today, I met very early on in my journey. That these women are family to me. I found my tribe originally on Twitter. I remember breastfeeding in the middle of the night and being able to connect with other women that understood me. When I was a first-time mum, I was 28, I think. And actually, I was one of the first of all of my friends to have a baby. That was deemed quite young, particularly for a director to have had a baby. And I felt so low and so alone because, my husband went back to work because they only get 2 weeks off. And I remember feeling that I'd lost like the rituals of my day. I kind of didn't know if I'd ever get back on set. I was just very lost and without real purpose. Obviously, I love my baby. I want to be there for my baby. But in terms of me, and because I was suffering after having an emergency C-section and all these things, I found it so difficult to reconcile kind of the old me with the new me, and where was I going in my life? And I think first time motherhood is a shock for everyone pretty much. And I was quite lonely because I was living so far away from everyone, and not having any friends really that had gone through that was hard. My mum used to say, "Oh, I can't really remember because it was so long ago." And she obviously lived far away, so she was a great support, but logistically we were so far. So I think online gave me this gift of friendship, and online I was able to meet women that a lot more easier. I know it sounds a bit like speed dating online in a way, but I was able to meet creative mums, and I met some wonderful mums through groups in real life as well and made friends. But I remember thinking it was really nice to be able to connect with people at crazy hours in the middle of the night. And I even had friends since then who've had, other babies and subsequent babies who said, your blog kept me sort of when I was up in the night with my baby, it sort of kept me company. So I think it works in many ways. I also, I've lost track of how many collaborations I've made over the years with fellow, entrepreneurs and creatives. And I think they're such valuable relationships because people bring their skill sets, their experience, their expertise. You are not meant to know everything. It's impossible. So you need that. And actually, it can be boring if it's just you, and it can feel a bit lonely. There's days where I think, I love writing, but if it's just you on your laptop for hours on end, you can feel so cut off from the rest of the world. And it's really important to live life in order to write about life and to be able to connect with others. And I think that's why we've got to be really careful about not, existing in a vacuum, in, being inspired by the arts, don't just be sort of head down. And if you're a blogger, only be interested in blogging and tech, do lots of things, see lots of exhibitions online or otherwise, like really expand your insight about the world and other communities and cultures, and don't stop learning. That's what I would say.
And I love that idea of, kind of constantly expanding and constantly, I guess, challenging your mind to look for new things. Just touching on that then, Vicky, I'm wondering, what sectors then do you think are going to be the most exciting for entrepreneurs in the coming months and years? What can we be inspired by? What things do you think, or what areas do you think we're seeing the most opportunity for new entrepreneurs today?
I think that there are so much opportunity. Everything is hinged online really now. Yes, once we get a vaccine and it becomes widespread, life will slowly start getting back to what it was. But I think that work culture might prevail. I think that offices, people might say there's no point. People have proved, employees and, have proved that they can work brilliantly from home. They've proved that their time sufficient, they're thriving in this environment, that some people are happier. Some obviously do miss the office environment. They do feel that maybe they're working harder than they would. I don't know. But ultimately, I think there's going to be a lot of structural changes. I think there's so much opportunity. I was reading an interview today with Prince Charles, who was saying that he was talking about the fact that he tries to keep his clothes for as long as possible and re-wears them. And he was saying he thinks there's a lot of opportunity for people that are going to be helping with mending and things like that. And I thought that's really interesting, actually, because we're all much more we want sustainability in what we're eating and what we're wearing. And I think there's huge growth opportunities there, whether it's vegan-based companies looking at, I've been involved in various Zooms about sustainability, and what's coming is phenomenally, interesting and exciting, really, because we're realizing we've got this precious earth. We can't keep continuing with the practices that are destroying our world. So we've got to think about, well, actually, yes, we do all need to be eating more plants in our diet. We do need to do so. So I think there's so many areas, from the arts, from getting drama online. All of us were stuck to Netflix, right? And all these different online channels and BBC iPlayer. And I think we've realized that people want to curate their own timetables when it comes to media. And I think we're going to see a huge rise in more homegrown kind of films and series and original material. A lot more is going to get commissioned. I hope it will, and I hope there's going to be a lot more diverse stories out there and opportunities for women, for ethnic minorities. So I think this is actually it could be a turning point. And we do know, looking at the stats, that digitization's happening. We know that automation's coming. We know that sadly billions of jobs are going to be lost. So now is the time to say, I am going to learn and I am going to not be a Luddite and I'm going to embrace digital and I'm going to get my business online. And we've seen the sad casualties of really big brands who didn't make that move quick enough. We've seen it with magazines that buried their head in the sands years ago when this was coming and thought that they would survive, and they haven't. And those that had a big presence online were able to, but those that didn't couldn't. And I think we're going to see massive hemorrhaging of jobs. And I think if we want to protect those people and those incomes, and I hope there's going to be different ways so that actors can create content that will go online, and maybe people will be setting up their sets at home. And I don't know. I think there's going to be ways to still create amazing content. And as I say, everything's really going online, from banking to all sorts of things. So I think we should approach it as positively as we can, because there's so much opportunity there.
No, I think that optimism is a really important point, Vicky, because I think it's easy to get bogged down in what has been just a year like no other. But just, thinking about that, like we all need resilience right now. We all need to see that there is a light at the end of this tunnel and that there is opportunity. How do you remain resilient? How do you keep that optimism?
I think, resilience comes from overcoming adversity. And I don't want to diminish what's going on at the moment. It's horrific. So many people I know have lost jobs. It's very hard. The economy is going to take a long while to recover. And I know that it sounds flippant when people say, oh, I'll retrain or do this. But there are ways to take your skill set in the way that I did. And when, okay, I'm used to directing stuff in traditional media and drama and documentary, but how can I still do something meaningful that's creative, but get it online, that gives me a great paying career, so that, and in a way that suits me raising a family. So I think it's about being sort of mobile in a way, flexible in your thinking. Doesn't mean you have to completely change your career path or your passions. No, but you do need to sort of watch other people. Like, say, for instance, my 10-year-old is just amazing with tech and creating. He showed me something that he designed. I was like, Oliver, this is incredible. It's like an agency we made. And actually, I'm not, he's a clever boy, but I'm not saying, it's because he's amazing. These kids have got these skills naturally. They've grown up online and they are really honing their talent in a very natural way that we didn't from his age. I remember sitting in an IT lesson at 14 complaining to the teacher that I'd never need to use a computer. What's the point in this lesson? Well, I've certainly eaten my words now. But these kids, Oliver said to me the other day, Mummy, you must do more TikToks, because TikTok is where it's at, TikTok and YouTube, focus on that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do some more. But, and he said, Mummy, just research, go on TikTok, see what other creatives are doing and get inspiration. And I thought, wow, this kid is telling me, he's giving me my advice, really. And it's amazing to hear that. And it's not advice he's heard from me. He's just naturally, that's what they're doing naturally. So the future that we're raising are, they're very creative. They're very, he knows how to write code. He can build games. 10 years old, and this is the world that our children are growing up in. And they're becoming good at it, they're becoming really good at it. But what I would say is that when I think about my personal kind of life and also my kind of career, which is very hand in hand because I have a personal brand, as they call it. Yes, resilience and strength comes from overcoming many hurdles and having to deal with things that are pretty bad at times, trolls. But now it doesn't bother me because I'm older and I've been there and I've had awful experiences. But I've overcome them because that too shall pass, and you become stronger for those things. If everything's hunky-dory all the time, you don't really learn. You don't learn that you're strong, and you don't learn coping mechanisms. And I think if we look at our children, we want them to be compassionate and kind. We also want them to be resilient and strong so that they can survive emotionally and physically. And I think those are sort of the things that I'm applying to myself. I had a very big operation 2 years ago on my thyroid, and it took so long to recover because of the where it was. It was a really big op, and it was so hard for me. But actually, I remember sort of coming out of that and thinking, "Wow, I've learned so many lessons." When you're ill and when you're low and whatever, you learn who are the people you can count on. It's great. So the fair weather friends sort of disperse. You learn about. I learn how remarkably calm I can be under crisis, under feeling like I can't breathe and things. I thought, wow, Vicky, I didn't know that about me. I'm actually quite a calm person when it comes to it, when it matters. I've consistently learned so much about myself and also who I am as a mum. And one of the things that was amazing was I learned that sort of parenting isn't a one-way street. Like, my kids were very strong for me and they learned a lot of lessons. So yeah, I mean, I think that whatever we go through, we learn a lot, and we must reflect on those things. I think particularly as women, we're not so good at reflecting on things and saying, wow, I've grown so much and look at what I've achieved in 1 year, in 2 years, personally, academically, financially, when it comes to business acumen. And I think we need to start getting a bit better at that and start getting better at being comfortable with taking risks.
That is such a good message, Vicky, for us to close on, because I think there will be people watching this who are fearful of taking that risk. And actually, the message from what you've done and the message around the side hustle approach is that you are minimizing that risk. You are managing that risk in a way that is perhaps easier to cope with. It's easier to adjust your mindset. It's easier to have that self-reflection and have the confidence in what you're doing. So I think that's a brilliant way for us to close.
Oh, thank you so much. I've loved today. The questions were utterly wonderful. And
well, thank you so much. We could talk for probably another hour and a half, actually.
I'm not quiet, that's for sure. I'm sorry.
Follow-up session next year. They can rebook us for next year.
Brilliant.
Thank you. And I really hope for those in the audience, I hope you're sitting thinking, do you know what? I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to go and do it today, because I don't have to wait. I don't have to decide that I'm going to leave my job or change my life. I'm going to go and do it now. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lynn. Thanks to the British Library and the Business Centre. Thank you.